What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. What I want to address right now is the end is near. Not for the stimulus negotiations, although we could be pretty close, but for Omicron, for this pandemic. According to multiple virologists, they are saying that we could be very close to the end. So this is actually good news, and I will address this towards the end of this video. I also want to address the stimulus package, where we're at there, what Senator Joe Manchin said today, and the potential for a standalone climate bill. It's interesting what's happening, but we got a lot of reports, so let's get to them. Today, Senator Joe Manchin stated that he has had absolutely no conversations regarding the Build Back Better Act this year. We're 4 days into the year, so I wouldn't doubt it that he had no conversations, but that's okay. Although reports indicate that he's still open to negotiations, according to multiple Senate aides, but the problem is Democrats are actually having a very tough time because they don't know how big to make the bill. They don't want to shrink it so much that Republicans are like, well, you had the opportunity to pass the bill, you didn't pass it, and that's why we're in this situation we're in. If later on it's like, oh, we should have provided more incentives and assistance to the American people. And according to reports, that's why the negotiations are very slow moving, because nobody knows what to put in it, because they don't know how small to make it to get Senator Joe Manchin on board, but they don't want to make it so small that it's almost impossible to pass in the House. Or the other issue is the voters, the American people. You and I are like, why didn't you do it? You had the opportunity, why didn't you do it? So at least that is the report as of this afternoon. We also have more reports of the Senate possibly being open to the idea of a climate change bill only, a standalone bill. Now, this would be a huge turn from the full-on Build Back Better Act that was supposed to be at $3.5 trillion. But today, Senator Joe Manchin had a bunch of stuff to say. Here's one of the things that he said, and I quote, "The climate thing is one that we probably can come to an agreement much easier than anything else." And he went on to say, and I quote, "There's a lot of good things in there. We have a lot of money in there for innovation, technology, tax credits for basically clean technologies, and a clean environment." Now, here's why I bring this up. I bring this up because also today, according to the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service, that's a mouthful to say, they are saying that the United States had its fifth hottest year on record last year in 2021. In 2016, 2017, 2019, and 2020, they were all hotter years. But the reason why this is so important to look into, what were we just discussing? We're discussing climate change. And I say this and I bring up these different points because this is exactly what Congress is going to do. Congress is going to pinpoint that 2021 was the fifth hottest year on record. Fifth hottest. Now, if these findings keep coming out, and they show that we're having hotter summers than normal, or hotter months in the summer than normal, we're having colder months in the winter, which is much colder than normal. This is only going to increase the talks of climate change provisions within Congress. We know this. We've seen it happen multiple times in the past. And earlier on today, when Senator Joe Manchin brought up the fact that he's open to negotiating the climate provisions, well, this is simply opening the doors to that standalone bill. The only problem is, will others agree to the fact that knowing that, okay, if we do a standalone climate bill, the problem is we may not be able to pass the rest of the provisions in the Build Back Better Act for quite some time. And it's quite possible. We don't know for sure, but it's very likely that if Congress were to pass just the climate provisions, it would leave out the Build Back Better Act, and many people believe it wouldn't pass, even in 2022. So we might have to wait until 2023 to see the Build Back Better Act pass, or at least some provisions within it. That means the expansion of Medicare would be gone, off the table. That's never going to pass through a standalone bill. The as far as the Obamacare subsidies or the Affordable Care Act subsidies and expansion, that potentially isn't going to pass either. Nancy Pelosi's park in San Francisco, money's gone for that. Paid family leave, no way that's going to pass in a standalone bill. So again, comes down to what is the priority. And some of the other news that came out today, which again comes back to Senator Joe Manchin, which is weird because, and I bring this up because a lot of you guys have asked, is it President Manchin or is it President Biden? It's President Manchin. He's the one that's calling the shots, not President Biden. Right after the Democratic caucus had their lunch today, and this is where Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he laid out his plans to hold a vote on the rules change regarding the filibuster. Well, right after that, Senator Joe Manchin told reporters that this is a heavy lift. Those are his words, a heavy lift. And he goes on to explain this. I want to explain it using Senator Joe Manchin's analogy. He says, and I quote, "The reason I say it's a heavy lift is once you change a rule or you have to carve out, I've always said this, anytime there's a carve out, you eat the whole turkey. There's nothing left because it comes back and forth." Here's the reason why, just to give you an idea of what this means. When there's no filibuster within the Senate, it means that the party that's in control, the party that has power, has the ability to pass anything that they want. So Democrats at this point can pass anything right now. But this also means they are blamed for everything as well. And if the reports come true and Republicans do win back the House and the Senate in the 2022 midterm elections, which are 10 months away, 9 months away, then they can pass anything they want in the future, and they can send the bills to President Biden's desk for the next 2 years and make him either look like, okay, he just went with what Republicans voted on, or he could potentially be looked at as the bad guy by potentially vetoing the bill. Just keep this in mind. Let me just paint you a picture really quick. If Republicans hold the power in the House and the Senate, and let's say they pass a bill to cut taxes, right? They want to cut taxes. Let's just say this happens. Okay, so they're going to cut taxes, right? Well, here's what's going to happen. President Biden, a Democrat who actually wants to increase taxes to, millionaires and stuff, well, guess what? If he says, no, we're not going to do this, and he vetoes the bill, well, Congress could actually try to override that, which could work depending on the numbers, but in the most likely situation, it wouldn't. But if Biden vetoes the bill, guess what they can do again? Just pass it again, send it right back to him, right? And so what's going to happen over and over again is President Biden is going to have to veto the bills or just sign them. Guess what? If he vetoes multiple bills, guess what they're going to do? They're going to make him look like the bad guy. So for him to rerun for president in 2024 is going to be very difficult. And so Democrats are trying to do everything they can to avoid that, or at least Senator Joe Manchin is. But as of right now, who knows what's really going to happen? And then Senator Joe Manchin ended his talk with this. He says, and I quote, "I've always been for rules being done the way we've always done. 2/3 of the members voting. Any way you can do a rules change to where everyone's involved, that's a rule that usually will stay. That's what we should be pursuing." And I think it's very interesting where the talks are currently at regarding this Build Back Better Act, and currently now a climate change provision, right? Potentially a standalone bill. And then we got the voting rights bill. And now we got potentially changing the rules on the filibuster. I think this is very interesting because just a month or so ago, beginning of December, all the talks were on, as soon as we come back, we're going to vote on the Build Back Better Act. But now that has been kicked clear to the back, not even discussing it. That's going to be passed later on, and some say it might not even pass until March. So we'll see what happens. But again, it's very interesting what's going on. But let's get to the COVID news for today. According to reports, Omicron is estimated to be at 95.4% of the COVID cases here in the United States. This is according to the CDC. Today, we learned from CNBC, they reported that Dr. David Ho, who's a world-renowned virologist, he stated, and I quote, Sometimes a rapid fire could burn through very quickly, but then put itself out. And his position is that having this quick spreading virus might actually be the end of this pandemic. That's where we're hearing the end is near. Because if we're calling this a rapid fire, it's going to quickly blow through any brush, trees, whatever, quickly get through there, and then it puts itself out. It's done. That, according to reports, would be a great sign. And other virologists also suggest the increased case count is actually a good thing as well. And this, according to many reports, is giving millions and millions of people all across the world a baseline of immunity to COVID. Keep that in mind. When we saw people got the COVID, when they got COVID, not a vaccine, but they actually contracted the virus, that actually gave them an immunity. And then people could go and get the vaccine, and that gave them an immunity. And if you got both COVID and the vaccine, or the vaccine, then you got a breakthrough case of COVID, you got a super immunity. So what we're hearing now is that this is giving millions of people a baseline immunity to COVID. And having this happen during the tougher parts of the year, according to experts, will only make it easier to get through the warmer months, especially in 2022, as we see the COVID cases somewhat decline. Or at least if they keep rising, oh well, as long as hospitalizations continue to fall. And that's the same thing we saw with the flu. Okay, great. The flu cases just go up every single year. They did, right? They were sky high, but hospitalizations were like 0.1%. So almost nothing, or not hospitalizations, excuse me. Flu deaths were like 0.1%. So that's good news there. Is if we see those numbers, we can pretty much chalk this up to something very similar to the flu, at least according to experts. We also heard from Dr. Anthony Fauci today. He said, and I quote, "As you get further on and the infections become less severe, it is much more relevant to focus on the hospitalizations as opposed to the total number of cases." And this is something that many experts from all across the world have stated as well. Let's not focus on the numbers right now because this isn't as severe. Let's focus on hospitalizations and deaths. So, according to both of these virologists, they both kind of have the same assumption that we could be nearing the end of this pandemic, which I think the sooner we can get out of this, the better. We also got a new report from the CDC today. They state that we only need to wait 5 months to get the booster after our second dose of the Pfizer vaccine. This is opposed to the 6 months that was previously stated. We also learned that Walmart and Kroger are both raising their prices of the at-home COVID tests. Right now, the deal with the Biden administration to sell these at $14 each, it actually ended on December 31st, 2021, so 4 days ago. So now, according to the reports, these from Walmart will be $19.98, and at Kroger, these will be $23. So that's what we know at this time. So just understand there's a lot of discussions going back and forth. Good news is we could potentially be out of this pandemic very soon. The end is near, I guess, according to experts. The stimulus package could potentially be pushed off for another 2 months. We might get a standalone climate bill. Discussions on the voting rights bill are still ongoing. Don't know if we'll get Senator Joe Manchin on board to change the filibuster rules, but we will see as we move forward. But that is what we know at this time. Again, I just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.